It's time for the View in Your Mirror podcast. I'm Katie Harms, and along with Lisa Rubin, we help you check in and curate the best possible you and the best view in your mirror. We share tips, tricks, and strategies from our 35 plus years in our respective industries. We talk about your day from morning to night and everything in between. We share our uniqueness, relish in our shared experiences. Along the way, we share conversation with fabulous people who give us their own thought-provoking insights. So come along as we help you hone the best view in your mirror. Hello, Lisa.
Good morning, Katie.
I'm back in Minnesota. We're both back in Minnesota for a little bit. And that means what?
Rustica.
Hey, should we meet and have a cup of coffee?
Yes, you and I need to do catch up on our life.
We do it. Let's do it at Rustica.
Okay, let's do it. You know what I'm having?
You are going to have the monkey bread and a tea.
Yes, and because it's cold out, it will have to be hot. But when it's not cold out, I have their iced tea.
Okay. I am going to struggle trying to determine whether I'm going to have a scone or I'm going to have the ham and cheese croissant.
Okay. I might have a scone, Katie. It just depends because they change out their flavors. I would have to make that decision as I'm right at the counter.
They had the most incredible savory scone recently. I can't even tell you all what was in it, but it was fig something else that was so good.
I like fig.
Yes, so that was good. I will probably have a matcha, but I really love their coffee also.
Okay. Well, I could do a latte too.
Oh, you do coffee with lattes. Well,
yeah, decaf. I know I drink tea, but I can't actually drink coffee, but that's a whole nother story. So.
But you can drink a decaf latte. I love that. Okay. And I prefer the decaf these days too, with all this energy. Nobody needs more Katie Harms energy, right? The other thing I want to talk about, along with Rustica has recently been purchased by Jester Concepts. And there's a whole slew of restaurants in Jester Concepts. And go to jesterconcepts.com. You can see the incredible work they're doing. But rusticabakery.com will get you all the information you need, locations by Bremakska in Edina at Southdale Mall. Easy in and out. Both of them have incredible parking with it, which I think makes a huge difference. Both are great to meet somebody for a little treat. Really, really good. You cannot go wrong with Rustica Bakery. It is so good to see you. It is truly one of the treats of my day on podcast recording day.
Well, thank you. Mine too. I still continue to have my laryngitis cold that I've pretty much had since my granddaughter went to preschool. And I'm starting to call it the grandmother cold because I get it about every 6 weeks. And it's the same thing that happens. I don't feel sick, but I sound sick.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're going through this. And I think it's 2025 is going to be the year of the crud. I say it. I really do. I think it's going to be the spring of the crud. There's just so much going around right now. And, everywhere you look, I feel like I want to just live with Clorox wipes in my pocket.
I know. And I'm a germaphobe. And I read that just random, that alcohol, Purell, does not kill norovirus. Just throwing that out there. I don't know if it's true or not, but I read it and I'm like, oh my God, now what am I going to do? So Clorox wipes are a better solution, Katie.
Yeah. Okay.
Or washing our hands.
There you go. Washing hands, constant washing hands. Well, and if you are fortunate enough to be a grandmother or a parent and have these little people in your life, it's constant. There's constant something going on, right? You can't.
I found that out.
You can't avoid it. So you do the best that you can. And we're all doing the best that we can, right? I took on a big I took on a big project. We'll see how it goes.
I wouldn't call it a project, Katie. You were honored to be asked.
Yes, I was honored to be suggested and my name forwarded to apply for the Board of Regents for the University of Minnesota.
And kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really had to think long and hard about this from a time commitment. And I know many people who have been regents. And first of all, to consider myself in that space, I had to think, do I really have the qualifications and what it takes to do that? And it was interesting, Lisa, because I don't putting together my history of what I've done, looking for the relevant things that would make sense for me to do this. Could I make a difference? Could I? And I had to think, all right, is this an ego thing? Yes, it's really nice to be asked, but is that what's driving me? Because it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work to do the research. The more I read, the more I realize I have a lot to learn. But that excites me. If I espouse that I am a lifelong learner, then guess what? I have to stand behind that. So even though it's scary and even though it's out of a comfort zone, I really think that I could excel at it.
I don't disagree. And, you know, you and I have had many conversations behind the scenes, off camera, or whatever you want to call it. And, you know, you run things by me. And I think that you could excel at something like this. And you're very good at being part of a team and also, again, being a lifetime learner. So you don't judge or have expectations. And I think that that's a very positive thing for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you are fabulous at giving, one of the things that I think when you talk about being a secret weapon, what you do really, really well, Lisa, is you frame things quickly for people. You frame what the sticking points are, and you give incredibly good advice of how to navigate through them.
Well, thank you. And I also gave you advice on your clothing options for your interviews, which we should have recorded that, Katie, because when you were in your closet and you were showing me things, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. This is what you need. And I start describing it like I describe an ice cream cone, right? Like, I'm like, no, you got to this is. Okay, yeah. And then you would show me different. I'm like, yep, those pants, that jacket. No, I don't like your blouse yet. Let's keep working on that. And now you have it. And you said it's been sitting there, what, for a month now? Because you didn't want to panic on what you were going to wear. And isn't that nice?
It's beautiful and it hasn't changed. And you said to me as we were chatting this morning before recording, you said, don't change what you're wearing. And I said, oh no, it's been hanging there now. I think it's about 2 weeks since we last talked about it on my pull-out hanger holder hook that I've been working around as I'm in my, because I didn't want to move it because I really feel good about it. And the really great thing is it's all pieces that I've had in my wardrobe. I didn't feel compelled to run out and grab something, because truly over time, I've built a wardrobe that takes the guesswork out of any of it. So now if I'm called to a meeting or this or that, I have, I think, a great wardrobe to be able to do that. And
you do. And what else did I tell you about what you should be wearing on your feet?
Something lucky pair of lucky shoes. Pair of lucky shoes, which for you and I would both be Jennifer Tatinelli.
Right. I do that myself. Every podcast that I record, I wear my lucky Jennifer shoes. And it's not because I think that I'm going to get lucky recording this podcast. What it really does for me is it frames me up to feel really good. It's like giving me candy or something.
You just feel differently about it. There's a commercial that I just saw recently with she's like business on the top and then she's got on her jammies on the bottom. And I thought, oh no, that's so old. We don't do that. You're not going to have a good outcome with that. And this is what's so fun is we can talk about the Board of Regents and fashion all in the same podcast.
We can. So can we talk a little quickly about last night?
About last night. I was watching the Vikings and that was really a dismal performance, but you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
Because we're Minnesota.
So I was watching that one on my iPad, but what I was really watching was the Golden Globe Awards. And I have to tell you that I do watch them every year because it's really the first big award that goes out after the first of every year, right? And it kind of sets the tone. And I'd like to obviously see the dresses, the makeup, the hair, because what I'm going to see there kind of sets the tone for the trends for the season in many different ways. And I've learned that over the years. But this year, I have to tell you, I was the most impressed with so many of the dresses because the dresses were relevant for so many other women who were watching the show. I felt like I could take several of those dresses, get them in a size of a client of mine, and they would feel just as good. They wouldn't say, oh, I can't wear that dress. No way. And
that seems so smart. If you're a designer and you're wanting to, I mean, that just seems so smart for.
Yeah, but there's the fashion piece of it, and then there's the art piece of it, and then and the jewelry was beautiful, and last night, I don't remember so many of the presenters talking or the people talking about who they were wearing for jewelry. They all get jewelry to wear, but they were talking about it. Now, that might be they had to, but I don't know. But I don't remember that happening as much as last night. But also, many of the women's hair were not done up. They were down. They might have had extensions. They might have had some soft curves. Some of the women maybe had a wig on, but they were very simply done. And the makeup, some of it was very creative, but a lot of it was very beautiful. And women could watch this show and say, I could wear that. I could do that. Pamela Anderson came on, no makeup, had no glam team, didn't have her hair done. Some people probably didn't know who she was. And she was making a point about that, right? I thought it was wonderful. I really did. And I think it speaks to older women and the older population becoming mentors for the younger population. And I hope that that trend will continue for 2025 because there's a lot of people struggling right now. The older population has been through many different roller coasters, right? They've all been on rides, and a lot of them talked about it last night, especially Demi Moore. Her speech was incredible. I just really enjoyed it. I normally don't enjoy the speeches and all of that. And Nikki Glazer, she was funny. She was funny. So, and she had a new dress on every time, like she probably had 10 dresses on last night. And it was really good. So it'll be interesting to see the other awards and how they show up and if the trend stays the same or it was just Golden Globe. There was somebody who designed the feel, the brand for the show, and I thought they did a really good job.
You're talking about relevance, and almost in a way, women like Demi Moore, Pamela Anderson, Jamie Lee Curtis, all talking about aging naturally, about growing up instead of growing old. All of these things. Our guest we have today is Sarah Edwards, and recently Sarah posted something about relevance and speaking to older people. And I think you and I would be considered older people. Sarah's turning 40.
I guess so, Katie. Since I have grandmother cold now, yes.
So maybe Sarah wasn't necessarily talking about us, but I think just generationally, you think the amount of knowledge, the institutional knowledge that we have from just going through life, right? We may have different opinions, and the key to all of this is coming together and learning and talking. And really, that's so much of what we need in the world right now. When our lives are being co-opted by social media and our thoughts and are all out there for everyone to see. And I think there's a generation of us that didn't grow up with having our whole world played out on social media. And so there's information from relevant people that you might not think about when you're thinking about who is in your relevant tribe, right? So we're going to talk to Sarah Edwards. She's an artist, a creative connector, a visionary. She's based in Minneapolis. She is founder of Fashion Week Minnesota, House of Sonder. Sarah has a passion for connecting creatives, brands, and communities through authentic conversations and impactful collaborations. With a background in community building and storytelling, Sarah has built a reputation for creating spaces where creativity thrives and where individuals and brands come together to make extraordinary things happen. Sarah Edwards, it is so good to have you on with us. Thank you for being here.
I'm so honored to be here. This is so exciting, and I can't wait to get into it.
Do you remember how we first connected?
Yeah, I sure do. Do you want to share?
One of our daughters sent out, we have a little family girl, the Harms girls text, right? They all have different last names now. So it's the only way they're the Harms girls. And she put on there, hey, there's this social media influencer, I think she said at the time, who posted something funny about her mom having knee surgery with a doctor named Dr. Harms. Who would go to a Dr. Harms?
I
So
know.
I thought, oh my gosh, I have to. Like, I'm so glad people go to doctor.
I know. It was just funny because my mom is so adorable, and she kind of has bad luck sometimes, and her knees had been bothering her for so long. By the way, they're amazing now. She's super healthy and happy, just full disclosure. But she was talking to us about her upcoming knee surgery, and she's like, oh yeah, like this really well-respected surgeon, Dr. Harms. And my sister and I look at each other like, what is his last name? Anyway, it was funny.
We've had a lot of people actually, he tells a funny story. Well, when he was in residency with a doctor named TJ Panic, but at the time he Panic is how he said, right? So, and then he interviewed when Dana was getting into medical school with Dr. Hertz, and there was one other Payne, Dr. Payne.
No
So we
way.
thought, well, could that be a group? Hertz, Harms, Pain, and Panic. Nobody did not have one single.
That's hilarious.
One single person. But we've had funny stories about that. But thank goodness,
Yeah,
it's
she's
good.
good.
Maybe that's what makes him really good.
Exactly. Yes.
A little bit of harms will do you good, I guess. But anyway, so that started us out, and I've followed you religiously since then. And it's been fun to see your trajectory, I guess would be a great word. But what I really notice about you, and we've only talked in person a couple of times, and you're always just so, you have this openness and this spirit of just like, kind of like a sponge, but in this very, like you're seeing it all. You're seeing it all, and you're filing it into places.
Yeah.
What is what I get from
Accurate.
you. And then from there, you describe yourself as a creative connector and a visionary. So how do you take that and how do you determine what you're going to work on?
Oh, goodness. That's a great question. You know, I've been reflecting a lot on this lately because I had someone who I really respect say, you know, Sarah, it's interesting. You're a bit of a futurist, which, you know, sounds like a compliment, right? But when you're trying to, from a business perspective, sell someone on the future and they might not be able to see it yet, it can kind of be a frustrating journey, if I'm being honest, because it's like even right now, I see things, and I'm sure we'll get into it, of like where we're going. And I feel like I'm already trying to come up with solutions to a future we haven't really even felt yet. And it's part of my, I think will always be a challenge for me, is trying to find, how do I paint a picture of what I see in a tangible way that's digestible, that helps me get from point A to point B. And that's kind of a journey I've been on, I'd say, for a long time. Even like influencer marketing, like I was kind of doing that before Instagram was even around, and I didn't even really realize it at the time. So yeah.
So what's your background?
I mean, how far back do you want to go?
Well, I know that you were an athlete in high school because
Yeah.
like also we
Um,
talked about this. You probably played against one of my daughters in
yeah,
basketball. But so what bring me from Grand Rapids
sure.
and to the city?
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I'll try to do the shorter version, I guess. So I'm born and raised in Grand Rapids in the Iron Range in northern Minnesota. I've always been, for as long as I can remember, creative, into art, music, fashion design, culture, people, anything that felt different, I guess. And growing up, I had like an amazing mom, I was raised by a single mom. I share that because my mom taught me so much about hard work and grit and resiliency and showing up. And she's one of the most positive people I've ever met. Sometimes I'm like, can't even wrap my head around it. Um, and then I did a little detour, for a year at University of North Dakota and studied mechanical engineering and played golf, which is funny if you know me. And I think that was because I was always afraid of going into anything creative because that felt like a luxury, like you hear the term like starving artist. And back then I didn't really understand the scope of what creatives do from a career perspective. And then my mom had actually been like, you're so creative, because I was at UND and I wasn't really happy. She goes, what about advertising? And I do air quotes because this is pre like social and digital. This is over 20 years ago. So imagine how much the landscape has changed in the marketing and advertising industry. So I came to Minneapolis, studied advertising at the Art Institute, got my degree, did a bunch of internships, waitress, all of that. And then I kind of just fell in love with Minneapolis because prior to living here, I kind of thought Minneapolis was a flyover city. And then coming here, I was like, wow, we have like a really great music scene. We have museums and, artists. We have Fortune 500 companies. We have entrepreneurs and restaurants. And I share all of that because I did my first entrepreneurial thing, which was an event fashion show called I Am Minneapolis that was about celebrating our community through a fashion show, music, live art, comedy. And that was the first moment I kind of dipped my toe into being an entrepreneur. That's how I started.
Wow.
When was that?
Oh gosh. I need to get better with dates. That's one thing that I've found I'm not great at, but I want to say that was about 10 plus years ago.
That's fantastic. And you you weave people together. I love that you
Yes.
pull these things together.
That is
And
my favorite thing that wakes me up in the morning is, to your point, weaving people together. Nothing makes me happier than getting people in a room that might not usually be in a room together, because I think that's when like magic happens, when we're around people that are maybe not quite the same background as us, because we learn so much if we're curious.
I totally agree with that. And I have done that and worked on that and want to continue to work on that. I talk to Katie about that a lot. Like a lot of people who've been on our podcast as guests who don't know each other, I'd
Yeah.
love to get them all in a round table
Yes,
because it would be incredible.
exactly.
well, even as you're sitting here, and what pops into my mind is it would be, oh, I'm just blank. I'm having trouble with names today. Does that ever happen?
Yes.
But like blanking. She was the Jody Hills. Jody Hills was a guest on our podcast. She is an artist. She's living in France, married to a
Cool.
Frenchman. She has a similar story. She was raised by a single mom in Alexandria. And follow her on Instagram, Sarah.
Okay.
You would really enjoy her. And
Okay.
you and she align on some things and
Cool. Okay.
how you look at things. And
Okay.
she's done with her business has been great. She's written books. She does beautiful art.
Cool.
Yeah, I think she would be a great connection for you. But
Awesome.
and truly an authentic. She has authentically herself, which we talked about leading up to this. You have been driven by authenticity.
Yeah.
How does that, because you still have to make money, you still have to have a career, right? You still have to pay the bills, I guess, right? In
I
all of it.
do.
How
Unfortunately, yeah.
and weaving people together and having this creative mindset, how do you determine what direction you're going to go?
Oh, we're starting with the hard questions. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I've been like really thinking about this, the irony, or like not the irony, maybe the push and pull of the word authenticity, especially as someone whose life is online. Like, truly, if you think about the word authenticity, can it actually exist on social media? And like, and this is coming from someone who the amount of people that comment to me and DM me are like, oh, I just love how authentic you are. And I like almost giggle sometimes because I'm like, but it's still social media, like it's still in a way, I hate to say this, a performance, even if you're showing the real parts of your life. So I've been thinking about that a lot. Um, but I think when I'm thinking about going in a direction, I think usually it's things that keep me up at night that make me think like, why aren't we talking about this? Like, I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? We're all thinking about it. I did an event a few years ago called Social Media Gives Me Anxiety, and it sold out in an hour. And I didn't even get a chance to promote it or advertise it because people just shared it. But I'm good at talking about things that we're all thinking about, but we don't maybe say publicly. And so I just did a post about our relationship with money the other day, and it was very vulnerable. And the amount of people from all different backgrounds that messaged me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for talking about this. This makes me so uncomfortable." I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I think you are. I think what you are is brave. So the difference between those who are not willing to talk about it is, or vulnerable, you said it, your
Mhm.
vulnerability. You're brave in that you will share that vulnerability. Somewhere you've gotten through that part of, oh, what will people think? You don't really give
Yeah.
a F
Oh,
what people
I
think.
mean, it's so weird. That's a great observation. I do care what people think. Like we all do. I don't care how brave you are. Like I am so sensitive in to the point where worrying about being liked or being accepted or feeling whatever is something that really gives me a lot of anxiety. And I think sometimes I'm also so passionate about people being seen and represented. That's why, like, any fashion show you've ever seen me put on, all of the models are from all walks of life backgrounds, not because I'm trying to be a DEI expert. It's because it's just better when more people are represented. Like I've felt like that since day one when I did my very first event before. And I'm not trying to poo-poo the term DEI. I just think sometimes it's like overused to the point where it has no meaning anymore. But like when I think of like inclusivity and equity and diversity, it's literally like it just makes the world better when you have more people from different backgrounds, perspectives, thinking about things, experiencing things, participating in things, and we all learn and grow as society. So I share that because I use things like fashion and art as vehicles for change, but I have a bigger message that I'm trying to get across through those things. And I think I use things like fashion and art because people love those. They're glamorous, they're fun, they're accessible, they're, joyful. So using those types of things, whether it's fashion, art, social media, video, whatever, to talk about things that I care about. I mean, I guess that's the role of artists, in my opinion. And the new thing that I'm focusing on as an artist is mental health and the attention economy, which I keep talking about. So I'm kind of putting on this label on myself lately when people are like, so what do you do? I'm like, you know what? I'm an artist. And I'm just going to just say that because trying to say all of these other things is hard. But I think when people think of the term artist, they think of just like a painter. And I'm like multidisciplinary. It might be starting a movement. It might be asking hard questions. Like art can take so many forms. And so I'm really leaning into calling myself an artist lately. And it makes myself very uncomfortable because my whole life I've been avoiding that title and that label for myself because I think of like, what do artists even, how do they make money? But now I'm so not afraid that I'm like, I'm so driven by whatever this thing is inside me that I'm like, the money will follow, hopefully. But I care deeply about my mission, and that's enough for me.
Let me ask you a question. I got to go back.
Okay.
And if you remove social media
Yeah.
completely, forget it didn't exist.
Sounds great.
Okay. How would you forget, like, we don't even know about it yet? Go back to when Katie and I were in high school. But
Yeah.
anyway, how would you, in today's world, 2025, how would you approach what you want to do? How would you get your messages out?
Probably meaningful conversations with people.
Word of mouth?
Word of mouth. Yeah. I mean, word of mouth will always be the best form of marketing ever. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
having a real conversation with someone. And I think honestly, I think that's what influencer marketing was supposed to be when it first started. And now it's just ads, which is natural evolution of it. But I think it's always weird. The pendulum always swings, right? Like, I think we're kind of craving, with this ramp up of technology and social media and everything, we're now desperately craving real moments, connection, putting our phones away. So
Talk more about that, because attention economy, that's a term I have never heard before until
yeah,
you said as we were getting ready to record.
yeah.
Explain to me attention economy.
I mean, I guess the simplest way I can think about it is it's, like media consumption and, buying eyeballs, like, or ears or whatever it is. It's, if you think of an influencer with 1 million followers, essentially us engaging with them, watching their content, they have our attention. They're making money off our attention. TV, commercials, podcasts, influencers, whatever, we're all fighting for people's attention. And, what are the Kardashians, whatever, they've made an empire off of capturing attention. Yes, they have products and whatever, but in order to sell those, they need our attention, they need our, engagement. And my push pull and the tension I feel with it is we're also living in a time when people are really lonely, and we are missing out on moments with our family and our friends because we're on our phones or we're on a screen. And so, but if we're successful, we have people's attention, but then and again, it's not all negative. I'm not trying to be doomsday or like an alarmist by any means. I mean, this has been since the beginning of time, right? And it's evolved over time. But I think where it's different now is, and I think a lot about the younger generation, like I don't have kids, but a lot of my friends that have daughters are like tweens. Like, they want to go to Sephora and do get ready with me videos. And I think about this, and I'm not trying to judge or say that it's sad, but I think what they really are trying to do is belong. Like, they just want to belong with their friends. And if their friends are doing that and they are going to feel accepted, it's the way we gravitate towards sports or whatever. I'm on a tangent right now, but attention economy, and in the way I see it, is people are products and we are buying people's attention. And
Yeah. And I've never thought about it that way.
yeah,
So incredible. And two things that I would say as almost a follow-up to that. Yes, watching our kids raise their kids in the social media world, having never had to think about that with our kids, right?
right,
Cell phones were really just getting to be a big,
right.
and then having that BlackBerry information, that technology was, as a parent, what we had to go through, and the starting of the MySpace and things like that. That was it. And so when you're talking about the belonging, I mean, I think that's the universal theme to life, is everybody.
Absolutely. We just want to belong.
But what we want for our young people is for them to stay young
I know.
as long as possible.
I
And that
know.
seems to be much harder now.
Yep.
And when you talk about this attention economy, I wonder, you said you really tend to see things before things are happening, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm kind of excited that you're bringing this to the forefront because maybe good changes will happen in terms of backing off of this, that people will start to realize, well, we can control where that phone goes when we walk in the house. We can control when the television is on. We can control what we see and what we do and what comes into us, but we have to be diligent about that now.
As I'm listening to both of you, I agree with all of this. But now our phones control everything in our houses. Like you want to make a doctor's appointment, you want to make a haircut, you want to you want to go to a gym class the next morning. You can't do that without your phone.
Yeah.
As a parent, you want to sign your kids up for stuff.
Yep.
You used to have to go, 8 o'clock in the morning, I got to sign my kids up for camp. And everyone would get on their phone and, you'd wait and wait and wait. Right now,
Yep.
you pick up your phone, you go to the link and you sign up.
Yep.
So when you say put away your phones and do all that, it's very difficult. I mean, in houses that are smart houses, to turn lights off and to turn your alarm on and to turn everything, you need your phone.
I know.
So easier said than done. Have your kids not be allowed to be on Facebook, to be on Instagram, and shut all that off. But I also think that COVID played a big part in people realizing that they could do something different in their home. And so if they're not on social media, they're pulling up their iPad if they don't want to watch the TV, and they're going to Netflix, all of the streaming services, and they're watching what they want to watch. They're watching things that kids are getting on sites that they shouldn't be getting on. And so there's all of that too.
Yep.
I'm not sure how that stopped.
There's a great film. Well, there's a couple of films I'll recommend in case people are interested in this, but one of them is a film that I love called Captain Fantastic. It's with Viggo Mortensen. And essentially the idea is this guy raises his kids like literally on the land. Like they like hunt, they read books, they play music. They don't shop, they don't go to the grocery store. It's like extreme to the point where it's dangerous. Like, and then their cousins live in like the suburbs and are on their, like I'd say a more typical way of raising your kids these days. And there's like this push-pull where like there's some things that Viggo Mortensen's doing with his kids, you're like, God, that's so beautiful. Like they sit around and tell stories and they read and they talk and they converse and whatever. And then there's obviously modern luxuries, like technology is not bad. That's not the answer. And there's also times where it's like we can't be living like this. So for me, what I'm trying to say, which Katie, you kind of mentioned earlier, anything in life, anything at all starts here. And it starts with self-love. It starts with accountability. It starts with self-respect. It starts with whatever, because there's always going to be outside noise and outside whatever. So to your point too, it's like, Lisa, like, yeah, phones are amazing. They enable us to do so much. They empower us in so much. This is coming from someone who's like obsessed with AI. Like I love AI. I'm one of those people, and it makes a lot of people nervous, which I understand. It empowers me, and that's why I get excited about it. I think where I'm the kind of my position on all of this is we have to have personal accountability, because Meta's job and Instagram's job and all of it, they're designing technology to be addictive. That's how they make money. That's how Facebook makes money. That's how Instagram makes money. That's how all of these platforms make money. There's another great documentary called The Social Dilemma, which is literally a bunch of ex-tech people that leave their jobs at Facebook, at Google, at all these places because they can't handle the ethics of it, because they know that their job is to design it to have people be addicted to it. And it's a dark documentary, but it's very eye-opening. And I think after all of this is said and done, in order for us to have any success as a society as it relates to our relationships with technology and social media, we just have to have personal accountability. Easier said than done. But I think if we can inspire people, you think of a couple examples I use is, okay, the automobile or the car. When it was first invented, it maybe wasn't the safest thing. Maybe there weren't seatbelts, or maybe there weren't lights that went on at night. As there were people misusing it or having accidents or whatever, they invented new things. I think that's going to happen with technology, where right now I don't think phones and social media is safe for kids. And we're seeing it happen where there's bans on certain apps for kids under a certain age because their brains are not to the point where they can manage that. So I think we're seeing technology evolve to be safer and people having more awareness. So I think that's positive. The other example I use is like, you can think of things like alcohol consumption. We can't blame Jim Beam or any of these brands for people's drinking problems because their job is to sell alcohol. It starts with your relationship with yourself and your relationship with this thing. So I'm not saying that phones and technology and social media are poison, but if you abuse it, it's not good for you. So that's my whole thing, is like everything in life is personal accountability. What you eat, what you consume, how you treat people, how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself. Like it always has to start within. And hopefully we can have people around us that keep us accountable, that check in on us, that make sure we're good. But as kids are engaging with social media, I think they need help. And that's my thing, is we need to help guide kids better with their relationship with all of this. That's the end of my soapbox rant.
It's a fabulous soapbox rant.
It's a good soapbox rant. You should
fabulous.
maybe start, I think it starts with the parents.
Yes.
And, maybe having some seminars or something for parents on how to navigate that,
Totally.
Understanding what social media, everything that you just said there, and what social media and putting that in a package. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Because I think the other thing that you talked about, and then we're going to take a quick break, we'll come back and talk about this more, is the mental health aspect of this and what we're seeing. And you cannot help but link the two.
Nope.
So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back and talk more about that. You are invited to make your way to a beautifully inventive and delightful store in the Galleria called Sweet Ivy. Becky Leffler's inspiration for the store comes from her vacations in Marco Island, where she relished in the sensory delights, intoxicating aromas, vivid colors, and exquisite products in the local gift shops. She has gone on to curate a beautiful selection of apparel, shoes, accessories, and gifts born of her love for unique products and her unwavering belief in her vision, brought to life and cared for by a fabulous staff. Feminine, chic, pieces that will elevate and stay in your wardrobe for years to come. Brands like Tyler Bow from Rhode Island, Spartina 449, and Magic Pants by Lise. Not to be forgotten is Littles by Sweet Ivy, their predominantly children's store and home to Barefoot Dreams, which you need to experience. Give yourself the gift of this store in the Galleria. Shop Sweet Ivy. ShopSweetIvy.com. We're back with Sarah Edwards, and Sarah, we were talking about attention economy, and then we got into really social media, and you were giving some great recommendations on. I have not seen Captain Fantastic. I did watch The Social Dilemma, and as you're talking, it feels a little bit like you're in your own social dilemma. And you've got some exciting things you work on, and you're trying to bring that all into a neat package. And sometimes packages, you just can't find the right wrapping paper for them. So maybe it's not going to be all that neat, but it's going to be an incredible gift. So what are you working on?
Oh my goodness. That you just nailed my entire existence, putting this in a little neat package. That's been my whole life. Here's the thing, I'm gonna just keep it really real. I love having a platform to influence or speak about things that are important to me, because I think it helps people. I think when I speak about things, whatever I'm struggling with or going through a divorce or whatever it is, like, if I can help one people by sharing my story or sharing something, it is fulfilling to me. But there's a dark side to sharing your life on the internet too. And to have so many people watching and being invested in you, is you just start to blur the lines of like, what is for me, what's for other people, it can mess with your head. And I think that when you think of like the ethics behind all of this, and you really have to get clear on your why and your mission. And for me, my personal mission is very clear. I want to connect people to make the world a better place. And I like amplifying the underdogs. And I can do that a lot through social media, and it brings me a lot of joy. But then there's also this part of social media media that's dependent on me sharing about my life and being vulnerable. So anyway, I share all of that because it was probably about 6 or 7 months ago that I was at my doctor and I just had shared that I'd been having panic attacks lately, and I'd never had panic attacks. Like, I've had mental health. I share about my anxiety and depression. And I think because I'm such a feeler, I feel everything. It's overwhelming. And I couldn't figure out what was causing my panic attacks. And I finally kind of got to the core root issue. And it was literally like, I felt like I wanted to quit social media and that I couldn't. And that moment like blew my mind because I was like, who owns who? What is happening? And I'm like, because I was like thinking of scenarios that would allow me to like leave social media. And even if I got a job in marketing, I'd still have to participate because marketing is social media. So then I was like, do I have to go like live on like a hippie commune? Then I had this moment, I'm like, how many other people feel like this? Like, they know they need social media, but then it's almost like it's like an extension of ourselves. And even if you're like a nonprofit owner or a small business owner or an artist, you need it to connect with people because that's where the people are. Unless, to your earlier point, Lisa, we go back to word of mouth marketing and I go, get a stapler and go put signs up about whatever I'm doing on, posts downtown Minneapolis. But anyway, all of that being said, that profound question, like how many other people feel like they're trapped by social media, and that it's like, is it hurting them, helping them? What's like the measure of that, has led me down this path where I am going to be filming a documentary. We've already kind of started filming, asking these tough questions and talking with other people that want to talk about this.
It's almost the shadow side of social media.
Yeah.
And you talked earlier about personal accountability, and I want to bring it to kind of going back to talking about kids, and especially with mental health issues so prevalent. And maybe your documentary will hit on this too, is how can we put up guardrails?
Yeah. I mean, I think a few things that we need to think about. And the first one is hard because it's so like abstract, but like loving yourself so deeply is not easy to do. But I think that's truly where anything good starts, is just loving yourself, your flaws, your imperfections. If you've ever met someone that like just truly loves themselves, they glow. And it's not about car they drive, what they look like, it's just this deep thing that they have. And I think we need to figure out how we can get more people to love themselves. And I think the reason social media, and I hate to say advertising, is the antithesis of self-love is it's getting you to buy something, do something, whatever, that'll change whoever you are right now, right? And like, again, I'm not trying to sound like this dark conspiracy theorist. I'm really not. But there's this meme I saw, or this social media thing, where it said something that was so powerful, but it was like, in a society that profits off your, what is it? How does it go? It's something about, in a society that profits off your insecurities, loving yourself is a rebellious act, essentially. But it was like, oh, if you buy this product, you're going to be happier. If you go on this trip, you're going to be happier. If you do these things, like, it's basically all the messages that we're consuming all day are anti-self-love in a sense. So my question is, how can we love ourselves, still enjoy products and buying things and consuming things and going on fancy vacations or whatever, but at the core, know ourselves and love ourselves first, so that these things we can enjoy, but they're not filling this void.
But don't you think there's other parameters and other things that happen with loving ourselves? Don't you think that that's a lifelong relationship you have with yourself? Because, you're a kid, then you have to be an adult. Then maybe you get married, maybe you don't.
Yep.
Maybe you have children, maybe you don't.
Yep.
Especially for women.
Yep.
The hormones come into play. They come in hard. I mean,
if you don't think those hormones affect how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So perimenopause and menopause, I'm telling you, those come in hard, way harder than when young girls get their periods, right?
Yeah.
But also, as women and who want a career, you have all these other hats that you're wearing all day long.
Yep.
And I'm not saying, and then I think social media then on top of it plays a role, good or bad, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so I think loving yourself absolutely 100% is the number one rule, because like I always have said to myself, and I've struggled with mental illness
Yeah.
throughout, especially when I was going through menopause. I was born alone and I'm going to die alone.
Yep.
And it's what you do in between.
Yep.
So I think that if people have that in their head about loving yourself and being okay with your flaws,
Yeah.
and learning how to embrace your imperfections, I guess,
Yep.
I think that's really important. And I think that I'm glad you said that is the number one thing.
And at the same time, you know, and this is where I'm just gonna be real, is like I get skincare things done. Like I get, you know, my hair dyed, I get, you know, and it's like, and I'm not saying those things are bad. And there are moments that I'm like, oh man, if I was really authentic, I wouldn't do any of this stuff. I'm like, or I can just say like, I do this stuff because it makes me feel good and I don't really need.
There, bingo. There. I think again, it's going back to having that dialogue with yourself of why are you doing these things? You know,
Yeah,
we judge ourselves harshly.
totally.
All
Judge
the time,
ourselves
all day.
harshly.
All day.
Oh,
Trust
All
me,
day.
I deal with it with clients all day long. The things that
Oh
women
gosh, I
think
can't
about.
imagine with
you
wardrobe.
wouldn't say to your friends anything that you say to
Yep,
yourself. And
so
this,
true.
Oh
back
no,
to loving
Katie, they say
yourself.
it to me. They can
Well,
say.
well, okay, they do, but you are in a professional and they've become your friends, right? So,
No, even the highly professionals will tell me their true thoughts in their head. I always say, as soon as women get their clothes off, they start talking, which they become
about
vulnerable. They're
themselves,
vulnerable.
about themselves.
Yeah.
And this is where societally, I think this has been going on, Sarah, long before social media. This has
Yeah.
been the judgment. This has been
Oh,
right, all of that. So
yeah.
I think once again, what you're doing is you're taking this package of information, you're seeing something that's so relevant and so important. And because you are able to be vulnerable and you are able to give this gift because of all you've learned, if you sit back and look at the body of what you've done over time,
Yeah.
it's bringing you to this place.
Yep.
So, and the judgments, I mean, we joked when we first got on and you said you were listening to our podcast with Nancy Lyons and you
Yeah.
and some friends, and we had talked about that with her and how she is not a fashion person. She doesn't write. So her judgment was, I didn't think I'd ever be friends with Sarah, or I think there was
Mhm.
person we were talking about. And that's what we do to each other.
I know.
We're not right. So once we can get by that, I feel like that's the next development in there's room for all of us. There's room for everybody to have a voice, have an opinion, they're not all gonna float and they're not all gonna land, but we can still have them. And
Exactly.
you'll find your people. You'll find the people that need to hear what you're putting out.
Yep. Absolutely.
Gosh,
I'm glad you're doing this. And I think it's gonna be really, really good.
Thank you. Yeah.
It'll morph as you go along too.
Oh yeah.
I think
Well,
that's
my first documentary idea that I can't do, which is hilarious, was like I wanted to be able to quit social media for a year and film it. But my livelihood, how I pay my bills is attached to it. So unless I got like a big, you know, maybe a mental health clinic sponsor or something to do it, but like I thought that would be fascinating, really getting to know your true identity when you're not consuming messages all day, every day, or performing for people. Like, what does that look like? Would I go through withdrawals? Like, would I be happier? Would I be healthier? Would I be more, you know, peaceful? Just interesting to think about.
No, the more, and also the people that have been following you and the people that wake up in the morning to see what Sarah's doing, and all of a sudden you're not there. How
Yeah,
are they going to find to reach out to you, which would be very interesting.
I know. And do I even exist if I'm not online?
yes, I have met you in person. I know
Yeah.
you do, in fact, exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can see where you'd go there. It's fascinating, just not, again, not having the understanding of what social media from the place that you have started, right?
Yes.
And not having to have built a career out of that.
Do you know like one of the number one, where did I don't know all these stats. I wish I had them. Let me pull up a couple, but one of the statistics I heard recently, which is like not shocking, unfortunately, was like one of like the number one jobs kids want these days is like a YouTube star or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, and then a couple other stats because I'm down like a rabbit hole of research right now, but
Well,
50,
let's face it, parents are exhausted.
yes,
They're
exhausted.
exhausted and and their kids are spending a lot of time on social media
Yep.
and they're seeing what appears to be very easy and
Yep.
how to create something.
And I keep saying, at what cost? Like, at what cost? If you were to pull all the social media influencers and the big ones and like the whatever, ask them how they're doing with their mental health. I guarantee it's not great. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to say. Of course, there's probably a few in between that are like, no, this is amazing. But like, if they have, I'd say a conscious or they're like have any self-awareness, they're having a feeling that I'm having right now. I'm like, is this good? And then I feel like some people I've interacted recently that social media is not a big part of their life. They just seem really at peace. And some of the statistics that I read recently was 50% of youth state that they're addicted to their phone. 70% is the rates of anxiety and depression, the increase among teens and young adults with the rise of social media. And there's this book that I recommend everyone read. I think it's a New York Times bestseller. It's called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. And it will blow your mind. And it's again, I'm never going to be the person that says social media is bad. I think social media is beautiful. I think there's so many amazing things that we do with technology and social media. I just think we need to figure out how we can have a better, and I hate this word because I think this word is made up, balance. How can we try to find balance with it? Because I think we talk about things like work-life balance, social media balance, but like it's so fleeting. But I do think we need to think about like the role it plays, and we need to have agency and ownership over ourselves. And it can't get to a point where I feel right now where social media owns me. That's not good. We're not meant to live like that.
Well, I feel like what you're doing is a love project for yourself because by
Oh,
figuring
that's a
this
good way of
out,
looking at it. That's
yeah,
accurate.
you are giving this, and because of who you are, you're going to do it for yourself and for others, and you'll come
Yeah.
out of it stronger.
Yeah.
And you'll come out of this with some great information. I would strongly encourage you because we didn't talk about it here and we're up against the clock, but
Sure.
if you can do some social media posts for parents of children
Yes.
and things to, work your magic on that messaging,
Yeah.
especially in line with mental health.
Yep.
Every parent wants strong children. They want their
Yep.
children to be set up for success. I remember as a young parent, all I ever did was said no. I mean, that was my handle on things. Like I could always back off and say yes on something, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of no's. It was
Yeah.
no's for years. And
Yeah.
I don't know, that was my tact at the time.
I think I did a lot of no's too.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for parents now because they're feeling pulled in so many other directions too.
Yeah. Well, and back in the day, I'm 39, but I do remember life before social media. Like, we're not meant to compare our lives to people in like Bali or like the famous Theodore Roosevelt quote, which, he wasn't talking about Instagram when he said it, but it's relevant, is comparison is the thief of joy. And if you think you're scrolling and like it's so insane to me to think about how much content we're consuming and the rate we're consuming at. It's like, oh, there's a war and children dying. Oh, there's my friend on vacation. Oh, look at their new countertops. Like it's like, and you're like, and then you can sit there and just be like, oh my gosh, my life is awful. Like I don't have those countertops. Why am I not on vacation? But it's like insane to like think that we're not supposed to compare ourselves, especially at the speed in which we do. Going back to like, there's probably people that sit and compare themselves to my life, and I want to be like, no, it's not glamorous. I have so many problems. Like,
But that's the beauty of it though. And that I
yeah,
think very real in what you're putting out. So
I
Look,
think that also, getting back to the Golden Globes, I don't know if you watched them last night, but
Yes.
there was a pretty strong message about what you just said, not social media,
Yep.
but what you just said.
Comparison.
I thought it was really good.
By the way, have you seen that Demi Moore movie?
Substance, I have not seen Substance. I just saw the series that she was just in, but I did
Oh, with
not
John
see
Hamm.
Lioness.
Yeah.
But I did not see Substance because it was
It,
so dark. I just didn't know if I wanted to go there.
I mean, don't watch it. I mean, I think it's amazing. It's like one of the weirdest. The message is powerful, and I like that they went to this extreme kind of grotesque, almost like sci-fi. It was weird, and I like weird, so but the message, it was just all about the pressure put on women and the desperation that we feel to, be celebrated, and obsession with youth and beauty and all of this stuff. But Demi Moore, I've always loved her, and she was amazing in it.
And
yeah,
her speech at the Golden Globes last night was incredible. So
Incredible. I didn't know she's never won
I
anything.
know that was shocking to me.
I
Yeah,
could not believe that.
yeah, and
and
good for her for saying
someone
it.
and talk about somebody who has been very open with her struggles and what she's gone through.
Totally.
And I think the good news is that we're hearing about this more and we're realizing, hopefully, that no, people's lives aren't perfect. There is no
No.
such thing. We know that. Instinctively, we know that. But how do we put the other pieces together? Well,
Exactly.
this reinvention of Sarah Edwards once more is going to be fun to see. It'll be so worth watching you, hearing from you. I want to stay in contact.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Keep
mean,
keep us keep us posted.
Yeah.
I've never been so terrified in my life because I think I'm like, I don't know. I think this is how I feel. Like, I feel like this thing has been in my face for like my whole life that I've been ignoring or being like, no, 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 no. And now I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna just totally expose myself, just go all in on this, trying to find this truth. And I think my curiosity is taking over my fear, and that's kind of a theme in my life, is like something that I'm afraid of, my curiosity starts to like take over, and that's where I'm at right now with this whole reinvention. Is like, I think I'm just too curious to know what happens. Like, I have to figure out what happens if I explore this at 100%, even though I don't know what it's going to look like.
Well, my advice to you is sometimes when you have that kind of fear, you do your best work.
I think so too. I don't have any tattoos. I'm like one of my few friends that has zero tattoos, but I said if I did ever get a tattoo, I think it would say something. This is one of my favorite quotes, that everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I think like anytime I look back in my life that I've been really afraid of something is when like the best stuff happens. So the fact that I'm terrified right now feels like a good thing.
Well, I feel really fortunate and grateful that the timing of when we got to have our conversation with you
I
is
know.
because thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing your fear. And as we move into our nonprofit highlight, you picked a very important organization, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that before you go.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that think ta more conversations we can have about mental health, the more we can have it be something that people feel safe talking about, the more tools and access to therapy and resources, I think the healthier our society will be. And I think there's a lot of people, one thing I talk about that is maybe unpopular, would get me canceled, if you will, is I think men, older white men, if they had more access to therapy or were able to talk about their things in a way that they felt safe and not judged. Because I think there is this stereotype that they have to have it all figured out and have all the answers. I'm on a tangent now, but I think we could all use more resources and access to help with our mental health. And I think that as a society, the more we can be vulnerable with things that we struggle with or make us anxious or whatever our mental health struggles are, I think the better we'll all be. And so NAMI, or is it NAMI? I don't know.
Yes. National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Yeah.
NAMI.
Yep. They are just doing a lot of really important work, and I think they have figured out a way to be really accessible to a large group of people. So
Yeah.
But I could have listed like 15 nonprofits that I care about, so it was hard to pick one.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we have such a great group that people have, and I bet a lot of the things that you were thinking of, people have done too. So if you go on our website, theviewinyourmirror.com, we have all the nonprofits that we've done over the years listed, www.nami.org. And it is quite an incredible organization and the work that they're doing to improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness through advocacy, education, support, and public awareness, which really that's what we get back to is the public awareness. If we all can talk about this comfortably and say, hey, we are functioning people in various stages of mental health on any given day.
At any given day.
On any given day. Sarah, thank you. If people want to get a hold of you, reach out, follow.
They could follow me. I mean, this year is going to be interesting. I am Sarah Edwards. That's my Instagram. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. It's just Sarah Edwards. And then I actually started a blog. It's 2025. I think I'm only 25 years behind of starting a blog, but I've just been passionate about writing about some of these things in a longer format version that Instagram can't really do. So my blog is on my website, iamsarahodwards.com.
Fantastic. Well, it might be the only thing in life that you're behind on doing, because I feel like you're ahead of the curve on most everything else. Sarah, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
What a fun, winding, interesting conversation.
You put that very well. Katie, you were really good today.
Well, I'm trying to be succinct. I got a big interview coming up.
If there's any indication today on this podcast, you're going to do great tomorrow.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. If any of you are interested in learning more about us, go to theviewinyourmirror.com. We are also on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn. And we love the comments. We've gotten some really nice texts from people recently. We just love what we do. And we're fortunate to be able to do it, and to have the people continue to say yes to us and learn each and every day from the conversations that we have.
I agree. It was a very interesting, fun podcast, and I look forward to continuing to watch her.
That we don't all have to know exactly what the next steps are, and level of creativity that she has going for her as an artist. And her medium might be different, but she's creating that as she goes along. That's really great. And I think for each and every one of us, that's the message. Be kind to yourself, look in the mirror, and give yourself the credit that everyone else gives you.
Love yourself first.
Because you are the best you and the only you. So your view in your mirror is perfection. Until next time.